Test. And with that, welcome to the SFL's Roster Reveal Show, live on YouTube. I'm SFL Commissioner and play-by-play commentator Cameron Irvine. Let's have some fun. Joining our panel tonight of analysts is SFL's Season 8 runner-up, owner of the Dallas Roughnecks, Steven Mullenax. How you doing, Steven?
Hey, Cam. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. The co-owner of the St. Louis Gladiators, Colin Northrup, is here. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Cam. Fantastic to be here, as always.
We love having you here. And the owner of the Vancouver Legion, Andy Hamilton, is here. Hi, Andy.
Hey, Cam. Always happy to be involved.
All right, guys. Well, we're ready to go. This has been a crazy offseason, full of moves, new players, new philosophies, new schemes. That's what makes every season different and special, and we're excited to bring it to you. And we're going to jump right into it with the Queen City Corsairs, the defending champions, 4-time champions in 8 seasons. The Queen City Corsairs, their lineup is on the screen. AJ Caswell and Kyle Walsh are worth $12 million to the Corsairs. Kyle, a rookie running back, another running back in Queen City that is likely to make some noise. On the silver side of things, a couple of wide receivers, T.E. Haynes and Chris Bush. On the bronze side, linebacker Avery King, free safety Stezo Woods Jr., and playing in his first season as a star after a couple years as a non-star. Along with some others, there's the offensive and defensive breakdown by tier below. We'll start with Andy. What do you think of the defending champs?
Well, I think Queen City always knows what they're bringing to the table, always looking strong. One thing I'd like to point out, no corners again. It worked last year for Queen City, and they're probably planning on getting it to work again. 2 defensive ends on the sheet as well. A lot of money at the top. $12 million going to 2 gold members, Kyle Walsh, the halfback, and AJ Caswell. That's an interesting thing to look out for. I think putting some money into the quarterback position is not bad. Caswell had a decent year last year, but again, over the course of the year, there was a lot of interceptions, so adding a lot more money to him is probably helpful, as well as they bring in a new receiver to replace Shayatovic, who leaves, and a third receiver coming on to the board in Memphis Blue as a bronze. So I like what Queen City's doing here. They got 3 safeties back there, so I think they'll be fine. I think last year I was concerned a little bit about the secondary, and I think this year they proved last year that they don't really need the cornerbacks, and this year they're going with the same model.
Yeah, Michael Spurgeon's a big addition. Pictured there is Koa Kaleo, who got a big pay raise, now at a gold defensive end. Colin, what do you think about the defending champs? You're going to be seeing them in week 1.
Yes, I will. And to me, the most intriguing part of this build is not necessarily the $24 million committed to Caswell and to Walsh, but rather than going with a defensive tackle as part of their front 7 core, they decided to go with a second defensive end. It'll be interesting to see how Colton May benefits from Koa on the other side. But I think something that could be sneakily surprising is Chris Bush, the rookie wide receiver. He's 6'5", 220, so that's got to be an inviting target for Caswell, especially down in the red zone.
Yeah, good point. All good points there, Colin. That's awesome. Steven, you know this team well. What do you think about Queen City and what they've done from the time they won the championship just about a month and a week ago to now?
Yeah, I don't think they did much and needed to do much. Honestly, if you win the championship, you are the king of the hill, and until somebody knocks you off that hill, you are up there. So just some minor tweaks and changes here. The biggest surprise to me is they dropped their defensive tackle and essentially added a free safety in that spot, and they promoted a wide receiver from bronze to silver. So as far as team build is concerned, not that much different. We're seeing a trend. Obviously, gold running backs are going to be a big trend we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes about these teams, but also the lack of faith in defensive tackles and opting just to stay with 2 defensive ends. You're going to see a lot of that happening this season where teams are investing in the defensive end spot. And as a person who had a gold defensive end, arguably the best in the league last season, I think it's a mistake. But we'll see the actual that's why they play the games. Excuse me, that's why they play the games. So we'll see if it turns out. But just some interesting trends here to follow. And Queen City, man, when you're as good as they are coming off championship, you don't need to change much.
Well, gold defensive or gold running backs may be a trend, but not a trend in Dallas. Steven, I want to get your breakdown of your team first. There is not a running back on your roster. Please explain.
Well, I mean, if you saw my team last year, we didn't have a running back either. I know that we might have had a silver position, designated for him, but our offense just wasn't. It just didn't predicate. Didn't really go through the running back at all. And so, seeing what Sioux Falls and how successful Sioux Falls was with that last season, and it just made sense that I think a non-star running back can get similar numbers to what we had as silver last year. So where we're seeing, like I said, as we're seeing a trend in running backs, I personally felt like it would be not only good for the league, but more interesting for me if we buck that. And if we're going to make a commitment to the passing game, which we obviously are, that it is all in, baby, all in. And we're not trying to have a balanced offense. And for all of those defenses that are going to be kind of scaled to stopping the running back, you may have to change that strategy when you face us.
It is interesting that Dallas has 2 bronze tight ends as well. Breaking down the rest of the roster, Jonathan Concord is still there. Conk, $9 million at gold. Jace Jefferson is a huge addition to the Dallas secondary and special teams game. A couple of gold corners, including former Sparrow Zenosika and a former Dallas Roughneck as well. June Fierro is back, among others. Before we continue, I want to give shout-outs Blake Hamrack, Frank Champion, WAK Gamers, Mark Biddix, Mahmoud Ajlani. I want to get his name right so bad, so you're going to have to let me know in the chat if I did that correctly, although I did stutter just a bit. Dwayne Schindler, Marcus Reed, Alex Garcia, Kenny G, Liam Crowder, Shan Varner, The Walking Greg, Play to Win, Clint Hendershot, Electric Aggie, and so many others. Shabazz Synergy is the new gold quarterback in Dallas, replacing McWavy Jr., who's now in Cleveland. Colin, what do you think about Dallas?
Well, it's definitely intriguing, but I know there will be people to be skeptical to go going without a running back in general. But I think Sioux Falls last year functioned just fine without a running back. Sure, they didn't go far in the postseason, but I think they can make it work in Dallas. What I'm more intrigued to see is former Gladiator Lawrence Kirkland transitioning to the tight end position. It'll be interesting to see if his abilities that we saw on the field last year, even though he fell short of 1,000 yards, it'll be interesting to see if he can carry over those skills that he had as a wide receiver.
Andy, I don't know if you want to comment on this, but in this offense, I believe Jonathan Concord becomes the shortest receiver, which is just downright terrifying. What do you see when you look at the Dallas build?
Well, we're not on the field yet, so I'll remain nice. I love this build. I think, first of all, I want to start out by commending Steve for what he's doing in terms of players. Our new job board on the page is going to be awesome, and Steve has taken the interesting approach to wait and see which players are going to be active as free agents, who's going to be at the games. I think that's a very awesome thing to do, and it'll get him some amazing players. The one player I don't want to see him replace is Shabazz Synergy, because that is an awesome name, first of all. I want to call that all year. Second of all, this is a great Dallas build. I think the 3 receivers are going to be strong. The 2 tight end set is going to be something interesting. Like Colin was saying, Kirkland moving to tight end will be really interesting. Morales at tight end. I'm interested to see what those 2 do up the middle of the field. Obviously, you got one of the better safeties in the league in Troy LaShaw. Adding Jace Jefferson to that mix just gets incredibly intimidating on the deep side of the things. And then you got 2 silver corners, which we ran in Carolina last year, so I know all about how well those can go. You add a silver and a gold safety to that mix, and that secondary scares me more than the offense even does, and way more than it does to not have a halfback on this roster. I think Dallas will be just fine and might be pushing their way into the playoff conversation before we even play any games.
Well, one of the teams, all great stuff, guys, and Dallas will be a really compelling team to watch all season long because mean, they made the title. While Queen City didn't change much, Dallas changed quite a bit. And I think seeing Juan Bosco back out on the field will be interesting. And Jace Jefferson, can he continue his magic in Dallas, will be cool to watch too. Well, there was one team that made storyline after storyline after storyline this offseason, and that is the retooled and revamped St. Louis Gladiators. And here is their build. At gold running back, a max deal. Evan Murr takes over for Park Hee-Chol, the former fullback, slimming down just a bit. Free safety Freeman Peltier is pictured. A gold free safety now at $9 million. And a rookie defensive end, John Barson, is at $9 million. Tight end, silver Elijah Swaim is a max deal. Colin Douglas and Ron Wild, a couple of corners. That's 3 silvers in that secondary, 4 total on the gold and silver level, after St. Louis probably spent the least amount of money of any team last season in the secondary. As a bronze, you've got Ethan Alexander, formerly Alexander Shayatovich, the rookie bronze quarterback. You've got fullback Garrett Rowland. You have, if you're keeping track at home, no star wide receivers at all. Andy, we'll start with you. What do you think of St. Louis's very unique build?
Well, I mean, just that. It's unique. It's very unique. I think this is one of the few teams we've seen in the kind of recent years go 2 gold stars on the defensive side of the ball. Usually we see a little bit of a flip. Usually it's 2 offensive stars and then a defensive gold to kind of shore things up. And St. Louis has taken the initiative to put more of the stars on the defensive side of the ball. I think it's very intriguing. I think it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on this season. I don't think the bronze quarterback scares me, considering that the receivers are just going to be generic. So I'm pretty sure the plan here will be to run the ball. If not, Colin, you might want to stop me now, because this is going to get interesting. With the bronze fullback, that's a good blocker there for the halfback. I wouldn't be surprised to see some swings coming out here. Evan Murr will definitely be a good running back for St. Louis, but I think the thing to keep in mind here with this team will be how well can the defense play. We saw Sioux Falls have a similar build in the idea that they went mostly defensive last year, and for the most part it worked for them.
Right.
But then once the playoff stretch came, they got in a close game with Queen City, and Queen City was able to edge them out for the win. So the question to me here is, can the defense of St. Louis play well enough? That, and then with Murr and Rowland running the ball behind Alexander, how well are you able to manage the clock? Because you really have no comeback game. So they're going to be trying to keep the scores small and trying to get out in front and then maintain the lead, as opposed to trying to come from behind to win the games. But I told Colin before we got on the air, I'm real interested to see what this team does. And I think a lot of owners in the league are watching this with a very careful eye.
Yeah, you got to keep defenses guessing for 3 or 4 months, especially if you make the playoffs, upwards of 4. Colin, this is your team. This is your squad. James Richards is your new head coach. He is a full believer in this philosophy, and I guess St. Louis was too.
We were, and we felt we didn't have much to lose by trying this. We were 4-8 last year, although we won 2 out of our last 3 ball games once we got it all figured out. I mean, what do you got to lose? And I thought it was really important to go with the strong safety, especially those first, 3 games last year we gave up 50+ points, if memory serves.
Yeah, and everyone just screamed at you for not having a strong safety. So there was no way St. Louis was not going to have a strong safety this year, right, Colin?
Right, and we are going to be a run-focused team, but that doesn't mean we're not going to abandon the passing game. It's just we're going to use our limited resources in a rather unique way. We'll see. You'll see how that plan fleshes itself out come the first game of the season.
Well, you got a silver tight end, you got a gold running back, you've got a fullback coming out of the backfield too, so it'll be pretty interesting out of St. Louis to see what they do. Steven, you're a regular to unique builds. How does this one wet your beak?
Yeah, I have to absolutely applaud the Gladiators once again one of the most intriguing builds, and not being cookie cutter at all. I mean, if any of us guys have ever simmed, and we've seen these non-star wide receivers drop passes, they'll give you nightmares at night, man. It's so the idea of going into a season without a star wide receiver, one, scary, but two, also it really makes it really clear what they want to do. They're going to run the ball, they're going to use the swings, they're going to use the screens, they're going to try and get the ball into their new playmaker. And I just hope for their sake they never get down in games, because it's going to be a very long climb to get back up there. But their defense is set to look deadly and to try to hold teams down. And if they can do it, they're going to be, if you like smash mouth football, this is it right here.
Being told that Barson is actually defensive tackle, also strong safety, very important strong safety. Greg Hatton-Shore is a rookie, mislabeled there, so my apologies. So St. Louis gets a new head coach, makes plenty of headlines, but so do the Cleveland Stallions. Going back to Cleveland, Mac Wavy Jr. will be in his first season as a coach, and here is the Stallions build. Mac Wavy Jr. at gold with $12 million, but Prince Escobar comes with him. That's a huge addition at gold at $9 million. Also, Koma Kaleka, a huge stay in from what was the Vegas Gamblers at gold free safety. Still, I'm sure, returning kicks. So that's going to be a really compelling star lineup there for Cleveland. Overstreet, Starbuck, O'Reilly, Allen, all returning to the Stallions, along with Lucius Sanders. They got a new defensive end, Max Blitz, at $2 million. Also another new player, strong safety, Brian Shark. Sean Lewis moves from defensive end to inside linebacker, and Aaron Tolbert is still actually moves from strong safety to corner at $1.5 million. All 5 bronze players on the Cleveland Stallions are defensive players, and Cleveland is trying to make the playoffs for the first time since season 2. Steven, Mac Wavy was your former quarterback. Now he's getting his shot to be a winning program. What do you think of his first build?
Well, yeah, I don't know who made the build, if it's Ronnie or if it's Mac, but if it's Mac, it's got his fingerprints all over it. I mean, it is essentially what Dallas did last season, except a couple of changes. Free safety and defensive end there, defensive end gold we had last year. He's got a free safety up there, which we had a silver. So those 2 positions will switch there. Rick O'Reilly moving from inside to outside again. And that is from Minneapolis 2 seasons ago, where they had 2 defensive ends, and you're going to see a lot of teams adopting that this season. So Mac bringing everything that he's learned from his 2 previous stints, and there's no reason to think that he won't be just as successful.
Colin, do you think this is the year that Cleveland finally turns the page here? Is this the build to get it done?
I think it is, and although it is a big unknown, handing a guy in Mac Wavy Jr. Basically the keys to the kingdom, knowing how that organization has worked in the past, but it's why not? I mean, this organization has been snake bitten, but I will say the best name in the SFL, if we had to make an all-name team, Max Blitz would probably be the first name everybody would vote for.
Oh, thank goodness Max Blitz and Shabazz Synergy are not on the same team. That would be a long night of names. But Cleveland, Andy, this may be the best receiving core in the whole league. Escobar has been a force every year that he's played. Flynn Starbuck probably had the catch of the year last year. If you remember, I vaguely remember a ridiculous one-handed catch he made in the midair as he got hit. And then Lorenzo Allen is one of the best receivers in the SFL, period, over time. He's a veteran. Overall, how does Cleveland look to you?
Well, I think it's a very interesting, very strong build. A lot of the top of the weight of the build is on the offensive side, and a lot of the bottom weight is on the defensive side. The one guy I like to see moving back to a gold is Koma Kaleka. I think he always played better at free safety when he was a Gold. I think last year was kind of a down year for him in Vegas. I think he'll have a better year coming back to Cleveland. I like what Mac Wavy and Ronnie have put together on this build. I think adding Max Blitz to the Rick O'Reilly factor kind of gives them a strong defensive front. I think their secondary looks decent. There's a lot of money in that silver level. And the last thing I want to point out is all of those bronzes are on the defensive side of the ball. How will that, weigh in? A lot of the top half of this roster, is in the receiving core. Everyone in the chat is mentioning, and rightly so, Escobar is going to be combining with Starbuck and Lorenzo Allen, like you mentioned, and they're getting thrown to by one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The East is going to have to look out for that, and it'll be interesting. Overstreet had a down year as well. He was strong, but, not really carrying the team like we kind of saw him do in Louisville. I think he'll bounce back as well as Kaleka this year. I think this is a pretty good build, and I think the East is going to have some trouble on their hands.
Yeah, Overstreet may be a little bit coming on the downslide of his prime. He's been playing some sim football for a long time, so it'll be interesting to see what he has left in the tank. So that is the Cleveland Stallions. Let's take a look at a new team. How about the Vancouver Legion by our own Andy Hamilton here? Ivan Sanchez is pictured there. See, I caught it real quick. $12 million as a rookie. This team is full of rookies. Corey Jones is that veteran, silver wide receiver, former Houston Hyena, and he really gets his first big crack at being a superstar in this league. Cade Stevens at goal wide receivers, getting just one more million than Jones. Tom Pepper is the bronze quarterback, and I'm sure at some point this season I'll be saying they would like a little salt with that pepper. I don't know. I'll come up with something. But we've got a couple of linebackers at the bronze level. Frank Champion, who's in the chat. I know Marcus Reed, who's in the chat as well. Mike Lowry at bronze tight end. The breakdown of offense is pretty even. 2 gold, 2 silver, 2 bronze. All good stuff out of Vancouver. So, Andy, give us a breakdown of your philosophy here and why you went with this particular build.
Sure. So in terms of trying to, bring some new guys into the league, kind of give them a home, help them write the legacy of this team. We went with mostly rookies. I think there's 3 to 4 people, 4 who have some type of SFL experience. And then I think we have 5 or 6 who have Sim League experience. So we're trying to build off that. In terms of the actual build, we wanted to go with some stuff that we knew from my past in Carolina and then shortly in LA, as well as some unknowns. So the gold halfback obviously is something that I've been familiar with. Passing game, I've kind of struggled to get that going in the past couple years. So we tried to allocate a little bit more of a interesting build here. The 1 gold, 2 silver should help Tom out. And we went ahead and maxed him out on the bronze level. So we're looking for balance on the offensive side of the ball, and then the defensive side of the ball. We just wanted the balance there as well, but we wanted to, add our own little flavor to it. And I think we did just that. And the guys are really excited about getting going. They're all great guys. It's been a pleasure working with them, and I couldn't have picked a better team.
All right, Colin, what do you think about Vancouver? You won't play the Legion this year, but you know what it's like being a fresh face in the SFL. How do you think they're going to do this year with this build?
I think they're going to do well. I think, Andy, you bring a lot of experience from your days with Carolina, and you know what that looks like. And I certainly think Mr. Pepper has a lot of toys to play in his toolbox.
Yep.
Probably the biggest of them all is Mike Lowry. I'm looking at it, and my eyes are just about bulging out of my head because he's 6'6", 260 pounds. How are you supposed to tackle that guy in the open field if you're a poor defensive back, But Brett Killen at 6'5", 222, he really has some inviting targets. And, of course, Sanchez being paid all that money. I bet you were looking for your version of Johnny English, Andy. I think you may have found it.
That's a good point, Colin. You may be onto something there. Steven, how How do you see the Legion on the field? What's going to be their mindset?
Well, it's the age-old question: does the quarterback make the receivers, or do the receivers make the quarterback?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be determined this season with a bronze quarterback. Andy's certainly given him the weapons to be successful with a gold and wide receiver and 2 silver wide receivers, plus a bronze tight end. You've got a gold running back in the backfield. So plenty of weapons for Tom Pepper. It's just a question of, as a bronze, does he have the wherewithal? Does he have the power? Does he have the arm to get the ball out to them and be consistent at that level? That's going to be their biggest question going into the season.
Oh, Alex Garcia thinks Cleveland's going to win the conference. All right. That is a bold prediction if I've ever seen one in the chat. Good analysis of Vancouver, Steven. Steven, we're going to stay with you because we've got the team that you beat in the Western Conference Final, the Alaska Storm, and here is their revised build with Evan Carroll pictured, now a gold corner at $9 million. Alex Dominguez, as you touched on earlier, moves from defensive tackle to defensive end and slims down. Ash Odom is the new running back in Alaska after Justin Beakley Jr., shockingly, didn't sign anywhere after a brilliant rookie season. Optimus Klein moves from tight end to wide receiver to join Robert Merrill on the outside. Gone is the bronze quarterback Murdoch Mock, who's now sitting in free agency and may not ever get a job again. Ron Cochran, the rookie, $8 million at silver. Alaska chose to max out all of their silvers and nearly max out all their bronzes with minimal money going to the gold stars. A linebacker, a corner, a safety, a receiver, and a kicker, all on the bronze level to mix things up. Steven, what is Alaska going to look like this year compared to last year?
Who knows? I mean, the guy said he was going to blow things up, and he certainly did. I mean, it's a total 180 in kind of philosophy. They had a gold tight end on their roster last season. They don't have a single tight end as a star here. They go from a bronze quarterback to a silver quarterback. They don't have a free safety on the roster, a star one anyway. They don't have a star free safety. Obviously, some scheming going on there with 3 cornerbacks instead. It boggles me a little bit, and maybe that's what Mighty wants. But they were 8-4 last year. I mean, they were 1 game away from the championship. So blowing things up just means that he's going to have to relearn how to game plan for this team. Don't forget that the Storm were on a 4-game winning streak, coasting into the postseason. So that means that they finally kind of got things figured out in the second half of the season, and we're going in really hot into the playoffs. Well, now you can burn that playbook because you're going to have to come up with something brand new and relearn things again. So, Mighty has something, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He's got something up his sleeves. But yeah, I kind of scratched my head a little bit about this one.
Strong safety Tony Willis, also kind of an underrated signing, former Carolina Skyhawk member of the secondary, and he had some games where he looked real good out there. Colin, what do you see when you see Alaska? Colin, you there? We lose you?
To really, yeah, it's just their crappy connection.
That's all right, Colin. Go ahead. We got you now.
But getting back to Alaska for a second, it's really interesting that they blew up the tight ends completely, considering how successful Optimus Klein was from that position last year. But to me, the really intriguing part is, other than Alex Dominguez moving from tackle to end, the only other guy you got on that second level is an outside linebacker. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. Conventional wisdom would say, if you're going to go with only 2 guys, only 1 guy at your second level of defense, you would want that guy playing middle linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see how Mighty uses outside linebacker.
Yeah, that's a good point. Only 2 guys in that front traditional 7, I suppose. Maybe they're not going to go a traditional 7. But Alex Dominguez is going to be a very big key. Big, sexy. He's not as big as he used to be, but still pretty sexy. Andy, you probably don't think he's sexy at all. You want him on the ground this year.
Yeah, my hope would be that he, sits the bench and then, sexies up the bench for Alaska. But no, this team is good. I don't know if I would agree that it's a complete overhaul. A lot of the things we're seeing here are just a little bit fine-tuned. They go with the gold halfback again, excuse me. They switched the defensive tackle to defensive end. They moved the quarterback up a level. Still going with the silver receivers. I'm interested that there's no free safety on here. That's something, that Colin talked about. He went with one safety last year, kind of got burned. The 3 cornerbacks interests me. My question, will be what the front, like Colin was saying, what can the front 7 do? I think Francis is interesting as the outside linebacker. I like what Mighty's doing in terms of how he's allocating the money. Denali's going to be Denali at kicker, so that's always a safe bet. I like what he's doing with the money. The question to me, is what can Ash Odom do? How is he different from Beakley Jr.? And what can we expect from him? And then what is the difference between the silver and the bronze quarterback for Mighty? He went so far with the bronze quarterback. Is the silver that last step that he needs into the championship game? Or is it going to stunt him going forward because he had to take the silver spot away from another position? I like the build. I think it'll be strong. And Mighty, he always comes to play and always has some type of game plan in mind.
Man, doesn't this just get you into the mood of being in the season? It's just awesome. Great stuff, guys, out of Alaska. Jumping to a team that imploded last year, lost 5 in a row. Finally, for the first time since they joined the SFL in Season 3, they have really gone different with their build. We're talking about the Baltimore Crabs, and here's what's different about it. Sanzo Robinson is maxed out at $15 million, got a pay raise after being real swing city last year, and in one game against St. Louis only had 3 carries. I doubt we see that happen again. Eddie Gage is the franchise guy. He's been there for so long and is now one of the all-time leaders in tackles in SFL history. But here's where things get interesting. For the first time since Baltimore joined the league, their quarterback is gold, I believe. TJ can confirm. Matt South, $6 million, a cheap gold contract, but a gold contract nonetheless. Wide receivers Kendall Gilbert and Mike Osai both silver, so Gilbert moves down a little bit. For the first time, Baltimore does not have a gold linebacker. Instead, Riley Earling moves from defensive end to outside linebacker, and he will get paid $8 million. Ray Cobain is a rookie corner. He'll get $6 million. Josh Packmeyer, Stephen Darrow, Jeffrey Deser, Aaron Lee, all returning. Eric Walsh is the most expensive kicker in the league, $2 million for a bronze contract. Someone is going to have to explain how that guy, if he misses a kick, keeps his job, because I think Baltimore wants to assure themselves that he is never going to miss a kick ever in his time in Baltimore. Andy, what do you think of the Crabs?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting that Robinson might actually take a handoff as a halfback. That will be fun to watch and wait for. I think the Crabs, TJ always knows kind of a little bit about what is going on. I love the addition of Matt South to this team. Matt's a great kid. Adding him to any ball club automatically improves their reputation in my head tenfold. So a great signing there to replace Rastelli. I think, their receiving core is similar to what we saw in Alaska, 2 silvers, 1 bronze. The money allocation is a little different. Osai only getting $6 million, Kendall Gilbert getting $8. Pockmeyer maxed out in the bronze level. Am I reading this right, Cam? Is he 5'8"?
Yeah, he's small. He's that little slot receiver.
Well, yeah, Sanzo Robinson's going to push him around in practice at 6'2", which your running back should not be pushing anyone around. It'll be interesting to see what role he plays in the offense, if it's anything more than just sprinting deep, kind of like a John Ross you would see. I think the question for me here, and I love the build. The question for me here is that third DB that would be going deep, if not all four of them. You got two in the bronze level, the free safety Aaron Lee and Jeffrey Deser. They're going to have to play lights out every week. And we saw, you mentioned Tony Willis last year. He was doing decent as a bronze in the opening 5-6 weeks. I think these guys could have some time like that. The question will be in crunch time, are they able to make those plays? But again, my concern here is the money allocated to Walsh as the kicker. Are we giving him all the kicking abilities, or what's going on there?
I think they're going to have to. I think you can only have maybe four of them, and unless TJ can confirm if it's if he's not supposed to be getting $2 million and somebody gave him the wrong contract, then we need to fix that. But
or maybe they're running fake kicks. They're not going to kick the ball at all, and they're allocating money to his arm.
Oh man, can you imagine fake field goals all day with Eric Walsh?
Yeah, there you go.
Colin, what do you think of Baltimore? You guys got the better of them in your only meeting last year. You meet only once again this season. But how are the Crabs looking?
Crabs are looking interesting, to say the least. What I'm really looking forward to is can Matt South, which I know played decently for Los Angeles last year. At times, he looked really good. Unfortunately, he was a little bit inconsistent when the team was trying to push toward the playoffs and get that spot. But I think he'll have a lot of weapons to play with. I, like Andy, do question why give $2 million to a guy who's just going to do the kicking and presumably the punting, unless it was a mistake, of course. And the interesting thing is the no-goal linebacker. That's definitely going to be something different because we're always used to seeing those high-tiered linebackers play for the Crabs. It's going to be interesting to see how TJ plays that. And I think Michael Sy and Kendall Gilbert will be nice weapons for Matt South. So he should soften the landing for Mr. South a little bit.
Joe Dazzo, Castro Patron, names that we've known in the past. Eddie Gage is that name now, the unquestioned leader of this defense. Steven, you played a memorable game of the Baltimore Crabs in the playoffs a couple seasons ago. It was pretty darn surprising. Their last few games last year and how they ended up on the outside looking in. That's just not what we're used to seeing out of Baltimore. They decided to change it up. Is this build better than their previous, in your opinion?
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, honestly, I kind of find it funny that Colin was questioning they're investing so much in a kicker for a team owner who doesn't have a star wide receiver on his roster. So that was a little funny. Here's the truth about Baltimore. They just did not have an identity halfway through the season. It just seemed like they had an identity crisis. They didn't know who they were, who they are. Is Sanzo running? Is he a receiver? What's going on there? It just kind of fell apart, and so unusual for that team because they're in the hunt every single season. So, at this point, I think you just kind of count it up to just bad luck, and because they have the knowledge, they know what they're doing. They've done it for so long. It's just an anomaly what happened last season. So, yeah, these changes for me, they don't necessarily answer the identity question for me, but I don't see anything wrong with this build, and I don't see any way that anything in the build that suggests that Baltimore isn't going to regain their status as one of the premier teams in the league. It's just now, can the playbook give them the identity that they and label them with a good identity that can actually win games? It just seemed like a fluke last season.
Well, we're talking about Carolina in the chat. Mark Biddix is in the chat. He's the new face of the Carolina offense. So why don't we take a look at those Carolina Skyhawks led by Mark Biddix. the veteran Johnny English, still getting paid $12 million, making some great money. But Mark Biddix, gold quarterback, $12 million, a ton of pressure on that young man. Phil Hall is a new rookie defensive end at $9 million, so that's 21 of $70 million going to new faces on Carolina, who either is going to have a rebuilding season with new coaches, Heath McDaniel Jr. and the rest of that Skyhawk bunch, or they're going to pick up where Shan Varner and the Skyhawks left off last season, a couple of silver wide receivers. We've seen that on some other teams. A corner and a free safety, Tristan Hatley. Nice to see him getting a pay bump up to $6 million. A tight end, a corner, a strong safety, a receiver, and a linebacker on the bronze level. We've seen a few teams having 5 different positions at that bronze level to spin around, and we've also seen 2 gold, 2 silver, 2 bronze offensively on a number of teams. An interesting question. Jamison Monroe in Carolina struggled for so long, and then somehow, some way, him and Shan Varner at the end of last season, they just clicked, and he was a career guy. Monroe is gone and was not picked up. Steven, you picked up Rocco Marconi a couple of seasons ago for the sole reason that he's been successful. He has been a successful guy. Is there any truth to just players are just good no matter what team you put them on? And can Mark Biddix and Carolina find a passing game with a gold quarterback that they've never had before? I think those are the biggest questions that are posed to Carolina this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you pick up a player like Rocco Marconi, he has a certain set of abilities. He has a history of success, and players on your team, people watching, it kind of affects their feeling towards Marconi. I know that during the season we'd be behind, and then people in chat because it's Marconi time, and so there's a history there that kind of just pushes along the storyline. But as far as what Carolina has done in their team build and shift, changing things up, what's going to affect them most is not what's on the field, in my opinion. It's going to be their brand new coaching staff. And although they were understudies for what Andy and what Shan had done over there last season, they're brand new puppies to this. So I like the investment in the goal quarterback. They've made, after having no defensive linemen the previous season, they're going straight up to goal defensive end. So you're talking about a different defensive strategy there. Again, one of those. I know it's not blowing up the roster per se, but it's definitely a different playbook and different guys running it. That's the biggest. That's going to be the biggest, the most interesting, and the most effective thing is how are these coaches going to respond?
Colin, you back?
Yeah.
Perfect timing. All right, let's take a look at Carolina. As we've been talking about, Steven believes that their greatest threat to their success is what they don't have off the field anymore, and their coaches, Shan and Andy, who are now at different franchises. Could it be the fact that gold quarterback, gold defensive end, $21 million invested into unknowns? Could that end up being something that trips up Carolina? How do you see this Skyhawks season going?
How do I see this Skyhawks season go? Well, there's definitely unknowns with the coaching staff of how they'll use the players, but based on what I've seen from Shan and Andy, James is going to do his mentoring just fine in those guys. And I actually like investing the $12 million into the quarterback. To be honest, that was such a sore point of liability for so long with Monroe that it may be refreshing. But I think the guy with the most amount of pressure on him in terms of who he's replacing is Cody Scott, the tight end. Obviously taking over for Shan, who's now doing his own thing. Shan was a big part of the offense on the field.
Yeah, he got a max bronze deal. It's interesting that the free safety is only at $4 million at a silver, and the strong safety is only at $2 million at a bronze. So the safeties are definitely some of the weaker, at least on paper, in the SFL this season. So that may be a compelling storyline to watch throughout the year. A silver corner and a bronze corner as well. Andy, your former team definitely mixing some things up and doing some things a bit differently. First time we've seen a gold quarterback in Carolina, God, maybe in franchise history. It has definitely been a while. What do you think of their build?
Well, I think, first off, James has went to work nearly the minute that Shan and I were moved over to our new teams. He went to work on this build along with Heath and Mark. Both of them are very strong candidates. Both of them came in last year, started learning, and just kind of like a sponge, absorbing everything that Shan and I were doing, as well as everything that James was giving us. And, the three of them, I could not imagine a better younger, more quiet, under the radar group of guys who are going to work together and be strong in order to, build try and build their way to the playoffs again after last year's visit via Shan. As for the build, I think, it's interesting. They're promoting from within. We talk a lot about how some of these guys are new names, rookies. Frazier, Guthrie, and Hatley were all in the chat last year as some of our non-generic or our generic users. So he's really only bringing, I think it's 3 names in here, 3 rookies in. So in terms of veteranship, these guys know each other. They know how to play. I like the moving up of Mark to gold. I think that'll be interesting for them. Johnny English, you're not going to get much different out of him. He's going to be a big factor for them in terms of their offense. I actually like what they're doing with the receivers and not replacing Zeli in the gold level and instead adding one to the bronze and keeping their keeping the silvers. I like what they're doing there. I think Heath will have a lot of offensive weapons to mess around with. But like you said, my concern comes for the secondary. Shan and I, admittedly, in Carolina, we had our weak points throwing deep and getting thrown deep on. I think that's one thing Carolina has to shield itself from, as well as, all they got on the front 7 besides Hall at defensive end is McClellan at the middle linebacker spot. How do you defend the run? Because
Right.
Once you get kind of past Hall, you're kind of into some open field until the safety or the free safety comes down on you if McClellan gets a block on him. But I think, James has obviously probably worked that out, and Heath and Mark will work together. And, the whole point of starting coaching in the league is you're going to make some mistakes. No one's going to make a perfect run their first year as a coach or coordinator. So this is the build, and I think they have a lot of room to work here. I think it'll be a good team.
Yeah, it's interesting. Carolina, Cleveland, St. Louis, Atlanta, who we've not broken down yet, has Eric Vincent as the new defensive coordinator. That's 4 teams with coaches that are in their first year, and we'll see if how quickly they can compete with the Queen Cities, the Baltimores, the Tallahassees, the guys that have the veteran leadership out there. Chicago as well. Some new faces on that staff, although Shan is leading that charge. And that's where we're going to go next. The Chicago Wildcats, Shan Varner, Deion Hawkins, E.T. King. Boy, they went all free agents, and they went all in on guys they knew were going to produce. Hawkins at $12 million, A.J. Barnes at $12 million, the face of the franchise last season for Tallahassee, gone to Chicago and taking his kickoff and punt return specialties there as well, I'm sure. Along with E.T. King at $9 million, Kanye Rockefeller, Kerryon Watson, a rookie, joins Alex Zeli, Blake Hamrack, a couple of former Skyhawks. They're at the silver level. So 2 silver corners, a gold strong safety, strong secondary for Chicago. At the wide receiver level, Davis Reed, former Minneapolis Mauler and Dallas Roughnecks. Shan Varner, of course. Espen Real, big signing this offseason from Queen City. And Maurice Spurgeon, another former Skyhawk. Chicago maxes out all of its bronzes at $2.5 million, gives a couple of golds, 12, and their silvers a little bit less money than maybe we've seen on some other teams. Shan, you won't get to see Chicago, but you did see them in the training camp battle. That was a really close game. What do you think about the look of this team?
Are you talking to me? Because my name's Andy.
What did I say?
You say you call me Shan. I know we're similar. We coach together, but that doesn't mean we're the same person. No, I mean,
you're definitely not the same person. You definitely have different accents.
Well, that, and in terms of free agency, he went to work more than I did. I mean, I just grabbed a bunch of rookies. No, this team is strong. Shan knows what he's doing. He also has welcomed Barnes, King. I know Maurice is doing a lot over there. Deion Hawkins, I think, is running the offense. This is a team, man. This is a team. The 3 receivers, I think, are definitely going to do their thing. Hawkins running the ball, he should have a little bit more of a command in Chicago. I know he was working with DeMond in Houston. Shan obviously has worked with Johnny English for a couple years, so he knows quite a bit about gold running backs. So that will be fine. Shan moving up to a gold quarterback for the first time, I think, in his career. So that'll be interesting to watch. Back with the 2 silver cornerbacks, which he rolled with last year in Carolina. This team is tough, man. I'm trying to find where the question marks are, and the only thing I have circled is that front 7. The 2 linebackers are bronzes, but they're maxed out. So Shan's got quite a team on his hands. The question here is, does the playbook match the build? And we'll have to wait and find out, because on paper it looks like a pretty strong team.
Colin, what do you think?
Well, I think when you look at Chicago, if the SFL had an expansion draft for the teams, Chicago's is definitely expansion draft-ish. By bringing in all these proven veteran players, it sort of got that George Allen over the hill gang kind of feel, where the future is now, and you bring in a bunch of proven players and plug them in right away. But getting down to the nitty-gritty of the build, I like it. It's pretty balanced. Like, I agree with Andy. The concern about the front 7 is definitely there, but it's not like Real and Hendershot aren't exactly unknown quantities in this league. But I think the key is going to be, on the defensive side, is going to be that secondary. I mean, you got Hamrack, Rockefeller, Spurgeon, Maurice Spurgeon, and A.J. Barnes. And we know how much of a game breaker that Barnes can be in the return game with punts and kickoffs. So that'll definitely be interesting to watch. And it'll be interesting to see what Watson does as well, being the only rookie.
Steven, everybody has a different philosophy. Vancouver went almost strictly, building their franchise from the ground up. Chicago went into that free agent pool, and they spent a crap ton of money to bring in some talent that's really going to raise the expectations of the squad. San Antonio did a little bit of both as they recruited their team. But Steven, does having all these guys, these name players that are top of the line SFL talent on and off the field, does that just raises the pressure for Chicago to win in their first season, doesn't it, or does it not?
I think it does set the bar high, and if you don't win immediately, it's you do have the character guys on the team though that can really carry the team through losses. So I mean, I think their build is the way that I look at it. They've just got so many quality off the field guys that you want to win with that team. That's a team that you can get behind and say, I want, if I can't win it, these are the group of guys that I think should win it. They're really easy to root for. All that being said, first of all, Colin with the George Allen reference. Isn't that crazy? Wow, that was awesome. How old are you, bro? Chicago, looking at the lineup, I have to agree with Andy. I just can't find a flaw in it. And you think about last season, the newer teams, Alaska and St. Louis, it took them time to learn their builds, where Atlanta just kind of seemed to just get right out of the gate fast. And I think that Chicago is going to be this season's Atlanta just based on their build. I mean, their build is strong. They got quality people in those high positions. So for me, out of the new builds, Chicago is the most solid.
Well, let's since you bring up Atlanta, let's go to the Atlanta Swarm and see what Atlanta's cooking up. BDG Hollywood pictured there on the left. He's getting the $12 million. But hey, look at that. No more funk. The funk is out of Atlanta. Instead, it's rookie Malcolm Mandel, $12 million. And then, is he still here? For goal-free safety, Mamound Ajlani. I feel like I got a little bit better that time. Rookie, $9 million. Hopefully I'm not going backwards. But goal-free safety, not something that we see on a lot of teams, although we do see it on some teams. Again, the duo silver wide receivers, we've seen that plenty of times as a trend around the league. Cody Taylor is a new tight end at silver. Ludacris is still there, as is Aquantis Shine, Delta Coakley, Nick Nitro, and then a couple of new guys on defense, Colin LaMarche and Jerry Forth. So, Steven, Atlanta starts fast. Last season, they slow down this season. They have a new defensive coordinator with Chisholm still running the offense. So, where does Atlanta stand today?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I mean, the thing is, like I said, they really had a hot start, but the end of the season 5-7. So, the biggest changes that I see here are obvious. The bronze quarterback now becoming a gold quarterback in their build. So all of a sudden they've amped up their passing game, and they demoted a couple of their former goals. They used to have a gold wide receiver and a gold defensive tackle. Those have dropped now to silver level. So just some rearranging, some tweaking. But what is interesting, and you can confirm this for me, Cam, if this is right, they have 2 inside linebackers at bronze, and to that screams to me the 3-4 defense.
Yeah, we'll see if IMF and Problem can confirm that is correct. But I would agree. If you're going to have 2 inside linebackers on the field, there's not a ton of sets that allows you to have both of them on the field at the same time. So that's a good point, Colin. While we're waiting on that confirmation in the chat, what do you see out of Atlanta this season?
I see some interesting things. I know in our pre-discussion, Andy was noting that all of their bronze players, like I think Cleveland, all devoted to defense.
Yes, you're correct. And by the way, sorry to interject, Quanah Shine is an outside linebacker. That's a typo. My apologies. Go ahead.
And it'll be interesting to see how Eric Vincent elects to, what he's going to do as a play caller, on the defensive side. That's a bit of an unknown, but in terms of on the field, I see Atlanta doing better than their 5-7 record last year. I mean, they sort of peter out toward the end. Maybe they're thinking that some of these adjustments that they made can push them into that playoffs. But as of right now, I see the East being very crowded.
Andy, this offense has to be better, and they've got 2 golds and 3 silvers. This offense better score some points, because this defense could struggle without some points, especially with a new coach. I don't care who you are. If you're a brand new coach in this league, there's going to be some growing pains. So Atlanta's going to need to score some more points, and maybe Malcolm Mandel is the next SFL superstar in this league.
Oh, yeah, it's certainly not impossible, and I think Agilani, if I'm getting that right, I'm going to go ahead and take my shot at it. He's going to be another – I think he has the potential to be another guy as a rookie who could make a splash on the defensive side of the ball at free safety. Wearing number 23, he might remind me right off the gate without seeing him as kind of a Kaleka type of character. I think it'll be interesting to see what he does. But you're right, Cam. I think the offense has to get going early. I like the moving of Vincent to receiver. I like the addition of Taylor at tight end. I think those three could be one of the better receiver kind of groups that we have, if you're including Taylor in the conversation, the three of them, along with Mandel throwing to them. Hollywood, I hope he has a strong year this year as well as he did last year. And then after that, it'll kind of all be on the defense, in my opinion. And my question mark for this team will be Ludacris at the silver level, only getting $6 million. How does that affect his play at defensive tackle? What's the difference between the silver and the gold level for him? And how does he kind of affect the play? He's going to have to help this back four, who doesn't really have much, considering that 3 out of the 4 defensive backs are bronzes. Ludacris will have to kind of wreak some havoc in the backfield. And if he can get that done, this is looking like a team who's, like Colin said, is going to improve upon their record from last season. But if Ludacris can't get in the backfield, I show some concern for the secondary, who might kind of get ate up, as well as the middle of the field if the running backs can get past Chris. So I think while Ludacris moves down to a silver, I think it still all goes through him on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, we have an opportunity. We want to let everybody know that the new SFL website will launch on June 29th. And it's not just – that's 2 weeks from tonight, by the way. It's not just a new website, folks. This isn't your let's unveil a website and then change it up 2 months later. There's an official partner that is attached to this project, not necessarily just exclusively to the website either. You're going to want to check that out Thursday, June 29th. That announcement will come at 6 Central, 7 Eastern, right here on YouTube, prior to the number 5 game of our top 9 games in SFL history countdown, which will start on June 25th. I mention that because we are looking to, before the website launches, have a preseason power rankings. Power rankings is now attached to the site, and we want to get you involved. We want each team to have a designated beat writer who will be in charge of submitting power rankings each week. They also could write articles for their team's page on their or on the website as well, and have access to those features. If you're interested in being the team's beat writer and at a minimum submitting power rankings each week, please let the Director of Player Personnel know in a private message so he can get you hooked up with our new power rankings system. And once the website launches, that will also be available on the job board as well. So, little public service announcement there after breaking down the Atlanta Swarm. Let's go to a team that is going to look a little different this year because it lost quite a bit of pieces. That's the Houston Hyenas. And it's going to be curious watching them as Cody Cantrell is all in on this franchise. The gold quarterback at $12 million. William Choice will take over for Deion Hawkins at a $12 million running back contract. And Kit Moore, the defensive tackle, $9 million. Once again, like Carolina, $21 million invested in rookies at that gold level for Houston. DR Sim is the only maxed out silver. Jamari Nito is also there at silver at wide receivers. Not only did Houston double up on the receivers at silver, but they doubled up on the corners as well. Former Baltimore Crab Tyler Jones and Aaron Arrington comes back after being in Mexico City for a year. Carson Delhart is a rookie. Darian Bowles is a rookie at outside linebacker. Corey Sims is a rookie at receiver, so a young team at the bronze level. Blake Chance is a solid acquisition from Carolina. He's on a $2 million contract. 4 bronze defensive players, and overall 7 defensive players for Houston compared to 5 on offense. Andy, what do you think of Houston's build?
Well, first off, I love the addition of Blake Chance moving to strong safety. Guy was a boss in Carolina. I think he'll do the same things for DeMond in Houston. I like them bringing William Choice in to replace Hawkins. I think he'll be a decent back at the gold level, $12 million. is just enough to get him started. I think Kit Moore is an interesting person to put at the defensive tackle. I mean, look at the height on this guy, 6'7", 315. Is that right, Cam?
That's what I've been told.
You're thrown over a tree at that height. I think that'll be interesting to see what he does in terms of disrupting the pass game, and that'll only help Arrington and Tyleek Jones, who are on the back end trying to take the ball away. My interesting part here is the two safeties down at the bronze level. How will that play out? Neither of them are maxed out from the information that I have. So that'll be interesting to see which one of them drops into coverage deep and how does that affect what other teams are doing via the air. The two linebackers at the bronze level are maxed out, so I think they got a pretty good handle on the run game. But it'll be interesting. I think, I don't want to get too preemptive here, but the Battle of Texas between Houston and Dallas could be one that intrigues some people. Dallas going all passing and Houston here seemingly to have some safety problems. But I liked what DeMond's doing in bringing in some rookies on the bronze level, trying to get them acclimated to the league and then possibly moving them up in the coming years. And I also like the additions he's made on the gold level, and I think Houston will look to challenge this year as well as they did last year.
All right, Colin, what's your view of the Hyenas?
My view of the Hyenas, well, they got some tall customers, let me tell you. Tyleek Jones is the only guy that's under 6 foot. If you look by the heights on their roster, I will say with Andy, it'll be interesting to see how the bronze safeties play out. I like the fact that they have 3 guys in their front 7. I think that'll help a lot. William Choice, I think, steps in nicely to Phil Hawkins because we know Sim likes to run the ball a lot. I mean, it's not overpowering or anything, but we know backs that have worn the Houston Hyena colors have been very successful in the past. And there's some nice targets to throw to. Keep an eye out for Jamari Mito replacing Greg Corky. It'll be interesting to see if Mito can replicate some of Corky's production now that the latter is former is in with the Vaqueros.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe Mito will be less of a boast than Corky was. We all remember when he didn't score that touchdown by celebrating too early. But I like the Tyleek Jones signing too. Player was a good player in Baltimore, and if Houston's playing a lot of man coverage on the outside, that's a difficult defense to throw on. To that point, Steven, Andy brought up the fact that Houston could have a little bit trouble with those 2 bronze safeties defending Dallas's deep passing attack. You guys will see plenty of each other this year.
Yeah, maybe I should send DeMond a thank you letter for that.
I can hear him now. Right?
A fruit basket.
That bronze, that safety bronze tandem back there got me licking my chops. Here's the real question, boys, all right? Who brought the juice in Houston? We're going to find out if it was Greg Corky or if it was DeMond.
Oh.
And so the way those two teams, first of all, I'm really just going to enjoy sitting back and watch them go after each other. That's going to be fun for me. And then I'll clean up like a vulture the bones afterwards. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to me. Is who's bringing it playbook wise? Is Corky going to bring his secrets that he learned over in Houston and make get his team going with those? And can DeMond do it without Corky? So those are big questions. I already know that DeMond's answer, but the safety tandem. But you know what? Knowing DeMond is some kind of trick. He's got something up his sleeve. It's going to be a bait and switch, and then he'll be picking off my quarterback 6 times a game.
Oh man, yeah. Houston, San Antonio is going to be a lot of fun. That whole Texas triangle will be a trip this year. That'll be a lot of fun. From Houston, we go to Sioux Falls, two teams that will play each other in Week 1, as requested by AJ Levy in the chat. And it looks like I did correctly spell his name. Every time I see his name, I get worried that I'm switching the Y and the V incorrectly. Kevin Clancy, gold running back. That's all I have to say. $12 million. That was definitely the surprise. We have not seen a gold running back or a running back with any sort of big-time talent in Sioux Falls for a couple years. And then Adam Okoye at a flat $3 million gold deal was very unique. Don't see that often in this league at gold corner, along with A.J. Levy, the staple at free safety pictured to your left. Julian Tyree goes down to silver, along with Jalen Miller and Michael Moore, who's a rookie. So 3 guys on the silver level in the passing game. Last year it was a gold quarterback with the 2 receivers, along with cornerback Nick Pop at $8 million. All the silvers maxed out in Sioux Falls. Of course, they didn't spend too much on their golds, just $24 million. Actually spent more on their silvers, and all 7 of those players averaged $8 million. For the bronzes, Alex Parker, Ajumu Afolabi, which honestly I believe could be the best offseason signing of anybody all season long, even though Chicago pulled in a bunch of players. Afolabi was really, really good last year. Chris Dodd at strong safety, Alistair Amir as a rookie wide receiver, so Sioux Falls now back at 3-star receivers and an outside linebacker, Braden Smith, a rookie. 3 silvers, 3 of their 5 offensive players on offense are on silver. Andy, how do you see Sioux Falls? They're always a compelling team to watch.
Look, you don't got to tell me, Cam. I see them in my sleep.
Check that. Levy is a strong safety this year. Maybe Dodd is a free safety. We had some issues trying to figure that out earlier. Jason is out doing military things and was not able to respond. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, first of all, I play him enough times in the East, lose to him enough times. I finally thought I was getting away, going over to the West, and look who follows me, Sioux Falls. So here we go. Sioux Falls is always a strong team. Jason knows exactly what he's doing every single year. The one interesting piece for me, and probably everyone, Clancy, a halfback on Sioux Falls after what happened last year and how well they played, despite all the controversy, interesting to me. Tyree, I think he's moving down to a silver. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I think that's an interesting team move. They're going with the 2 gold defensive backs. Now, this is something I have some experience on. Carolina 2 years ago did 2 gold cornerbacks. And, that's a lot of pressure on the defensive backfield. You're taking some pressure off of the front 7 because you have a lot of back-end help. But the interesting part, is if they grind out 4 or 5 yards a carry or a catch, they're picking up first downs. They're moving the ball till eventually you're in the red zone. And now, if you're pushing your corners and safeties deep for your defensive coverage, they're in the end zone by that point. But I'm sure Jason knows what he's doing because a lot of the times what would kill that would be the swing pass. And Jason last year and the year before knew plenty about that. I like the addition of Afolabi. I think that's a huge signing for them. This roster looks strong. I think Miller and Moore will be an interesting combination. And then Amir in the bronze level will do some work. And we'll see what the difference between the gold and the silver level is for a quarterback as Tyree moves down. I'm interested to see how he'll play this year. But Sioux Falls, I think, will, as always, find a way.
Alex Parker apparently moving to inside linebacker, which not really sure how that's even possible since I don't believe defensive end to inside linebacker is technically a legal position change. I don't know. This is, roster reveal show is never perfect as we try to finalize these rosters, get them hatched, and get ready for the season. So with that aside, Colin, how do you see Sioux Falls? Because seeing them back with a gold running back is the most interesting thing to me personally.
Well, it is interesting, and the fact that they're paying Mr. Clancy all this money has to have the fellow owners scared, because we remember the last time Sioux Falls went with a gold running back.
Oh, he was good.
Ashley Anderson, man, just tearing things up. but I really think Tyree moving down is actually going to help the team overall, but we might see a slight dip in his play. It's a radical shift to go from such a defensive heavy build to realizing that you need help on offense. But the fact of the matter is, Sioux Falls found themselves in games last year where it was a track meet and they just didn't have the weapons you need to keep up. So kudos to Jason as well as Mr. Levy to realizing perhaps that they needed to make a change if they want to advance to that next level. I don't think they won a playoff game, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, they're still trying to get over that hump, and all their playoff games have been at home, and every single time they've come up on the short end, twice against Queen City and once against Minneapolis. So they're just desperate. They won't be playing those teams in the first round. If they get there, so maybe a taste of scenery will do them some good. Steven, this offense was honestly quite amazing with 3 stars last season. The production they got out of it, I can't even imagine what they're going to look like with 5 offensive players.
Yeah, it's not a wise thing to doubt Jason at all. I mean, looking at what he did last year without a running back and without a star running back, going 8-4, really impressive. So now that he's kind of shifted those priorities kind of more toward a gold running back, just a total flip-flop there, makes me scared, honestly, because my team build, what he saw last season to make such a drastic change. But I mean, 2 names I think we're forgetting here. Ashley Anderson is one. So we know that Jason knows how to run the ball. And 2, no Jordan Jennings. I mean, this guy was a monster.
Yeah, he came up clutch so many times.
So many times. And one of only 2 star wide receivers on the roster. And that guy's not there anymore. I think that's going to have a bigger impact than most people think. But you got to give credit to where credit is due. Jason's been successful every season he's been in the SFL. So, he'll make it work. He has a history of making it work. And my biggest, if I have one question at all, is that silver quarterback. I liked the production from Baltimore's quarterback last year. That was a silver. Could Jason get similar production but also add wins? That's the question.
Yeah, and we mentioned Jordan Jennings, so we can skip right over to Jordan Jennings' new home, and that's in San Antonio, where he got paid. $9 million gold contract. He's going to be with Jason Gurman, rookie or German, one of the 2. Rookie running back at $12 million. Shane Hornish, inside linebacker, $12 million. That's $24 million to rookies in the Alamo City. But Jennings is that crucial signing. Who's going to be his quarterback? Rookie Joey Langdon, a max bronze, $2.5 million. But there's some nice veterans leadership on this team from San Antonio. A.J. Lacoste at $2 million. Greg Corky at $2 million. Actually takes a pay cut to be on his own team. John De La Rosa, $6 million at the cornerback position, and Coltrane probably in the all-name team, $6 million silver tight end, among others. So, Steven, you're going to be seeing San Antonio twice this year, and you're going to be keeping tabs on them, no doubt, eating your popcorn while the Vaqueros and Houston Hyenas try to kill each other. For their first build, what does San Antonio look like in your mind?
They're going to be one of the more entertaining teams just because of their owner and what he'll probably say in chat. But as far as if I'm scared, not really scared. Mainly because of that bronze quarterback. Greg is, and he probably has some great plans up his sleeve that I'm underestimating. But getting that bronze quarterback is going to be job number 1 from day one. He's going to have to get that squared away. He also invested a bronze in the fullback. Got a gold inside linebacker to try to help control the run. So, I mean, there are definitely some pieces there. I've got to see it in action. I really do want to see what he does with this build. But and I do appreciate it. I like anybody who's gutsy enough to go with a bronze quarterback in this league. So it's a wait and see for me, but I'm not trembling in my boots, Greg.
All right, Colin, are you? Well, you wouldn't be scared. We wouldn't even play him until the championship game. But if you were in the Western Conference, would you be scared of this build?
Well, the only thing that scares me really is that running back at $12 million. And knowing what Corky likes to do, well, based on his relationship with Damon, that would definitely be a focus for me if I was in the Western Conference. Is probably stopping German would be number one, and then getting to Corky. Obviously, in the past game, he's going to play a role. Like I said in the pre-show beforehand, that I'll be interested to see how Corky uses Marcus Jones. I mean, given that I have a fullback, I will definitely take interest in that. But as far as defense goes, other than the linebacker, I like what they've done. I think Lacoste is a solid player. I got some height on him, as does De La Rosa. Should provide plenty of headaches for wide receivers. And Jordan Jennings getting a big payday. It'll be interesting to see if he can continue his momentum from last season.
Andy, I look at this San Antonio team as they're going to be one tough team to score on. They got four of their 6 defensive players are silvers and golds, and Corky consistently is well known as a defensive guy, very much like Max Paul. Those 2 guys know how to coach the defense, and this is a talented defense.
Yeah, I think the defense is strong here. That's not the concern point.
Although it is young, three of them are rookies.
Right, young. I think the 2 cornerbacks at the bronze level intrigue me, but then they have De La Rosa at silver level. So, they got some insurance there. Really, there'll only be – oh, no, what was that, a fire alarm that I heard?
Oh, no, not –
Somebody's popping popcorn.
Kim knows all about it.
Hashtag 222.
220, no.
Oh, 220.
Was it 420 or 2? I can't remember. Anyways, no, they had some insurance there on the cornerbacks, so they should be good on that point. And then the 2 safeties at the silver level kind of shores up that secondary for me. My big question mark here is honestly the pass game. I think the question will be, can Langdon get it done at the bronze level? He's got 2 silver weapons in Coltrane and Jennings. The run game will be solid. I'm interested to see what that fullback does at the bronze level. We've had a fullback in Carolina 2 or 3 years ago. So we didn't get the production we wanted out of him. I'm interested to see what Corky can do with Marcus Jones Jr. So the run game doesn't intrigue me as much, but the question mark to me will be, what can Langdon get done with that receiving core, and will it be enough to supplement that run game, or will it be something where the team will have to go one-sided in order to get things done? The defense is solid. I think my question marks are on offense, and if those question marks are turning into check marks, then this is a solid team.
2 teams left: Mexico City, Oklahoma City. We start with the Renegades. Somewhat changed, but very, very similar, as this team once again tries to get over the hump. Quinton Mantua at fullback, $2 million fullback. There are no bronze maxed contract guys on this Oklahoma City squad. So instead of a second tight end, they're going with a fullback, and they also have just 1 star wide receiver. That's Caleb Hamby, who burst on the scene and really had a tremendous rookie season, one of the best of any receiver last year. But otherwise, things are very similar for Oklahoma City, as basically over the last 2 seasons, this team has not made the playoffs because it can't win games in the final 5 minutes. And Oklahoma City, unlike maybe an Alaska or a Dallas is just hoping that staying the course will eventually get them to where they need to go. Andy, is this the year finally, or are they just going to continue to struggle?
Well, Cam, I think it's an interesting build. I'll give it that much. My question last year for them was, where would the pass game come from? And my question this year is similar. They got Red Feather is going to be throwing it. Obviously, Hamby and Wieland were decent receivers for them. Wieland will move down a level and go to tight end.
Right.
Bovine, to me, last year was kind of absent. He had some moments, but I think, they're going to want more out of him. And hopefully this year, they can get more out of him, because if not, I'm struggling to see where they're going to throw the ball. They're adding a fullback. So another team that, that has that question mark, what can the fullback do for me? This team, I think, is not as sure on defense as the Vaqueros. The bulk of their defense is on the bronze level, 2 silver, 1 gold. Not anything to be scoffed at, but not anything that personally intimidates me. I think Billy Joe Casper will have a solid year. Cam Michael, Tank Savage, the defensive backs are not what scares me. It's Cole Irvine, and Ethan Hamby in the front. What can they get done to stop the run? That's my question mark for them.
Yeah, Oklahoma City had a mixed bag defensive year last year. Some games very strong, other games not so much. And Tiberius Bovine really is that key. He is now unquestionably the highest paid player on this team. He has to get back to the form that he was in. And maybe the Renegades are trying to get Bruschi one last hurrah here by boosting up and maybe – with just the 1 receiver, still having the 2 tight ends, adding a fullback, who knows? Maybe Bruschi has a bounce back year, although he had one of his better years last year.
I'm pretty sure they signed Mantua to push Bruschi's wheelchair on the field. So I think you might have that flipped. I think Bruschi would then be considered the fullback, and Mantua would be the halfback.
Here come the old man jokes.
So we'll see, how far those wheels will take him.
My dad is cursing at you really loudly right now. Colin, what is the conundrum that is Oklahoma City? I believe, to give you a stat, in the last 3 seasons, Oklahoma City is, if I remember correctly, 2-10 in games decided by 8 points or less. That has been their Achilles heel.
That's really something that you're going to figure out. And I'm going to go based on what Andy said about the offense. You just look at it. Only 1 receiver, even though you got a proven quarterback in Red Feather, obviously. He's put up great numbers in this league. Where are the targets going to come from? And if they get behind by a big margin, or if they get caught up in a track meet, my question is, how are they going to keep up? And defensively, they ought to be fine. I mean, Billy Joe Casper, solid. Tank Savage is solid. But I'll be interested to see if Ethan Hamby can keep up his production from last season. He was very productive. And I will make a sort of prediction. I think that Bruschi will pass Mr. Heechol as the SFL's all-time leading rusher this season.
Yeah, his next competition is out of Johnny English, and we'll see what Johnny English can do since Heechol doesn't have a team. I saw Steven in the studio throwing up his hands saying, "Where are their targets going to come from? Where are your targets going to come from?" in St. Louis, just because of the comment that he made earlier. Anyway, Steven, take it away. What are your thoughts on OKC?
Instead of Gatorade, Bruschi drinks embalming fluid. This defense, don't underestimate them, man. I play them twice a year. These guys bring it. They hit hard. They hit like a Mack truck. And Cam Michael has got stick-em on his hands when it comes to interception. So defensively, I'm not worried about this team. It's always been offense. It's Red Feather might be a proven quarterback, just not since I've been playing. And And so it's keeping him at silver. And Tiberius Bovine, like you said, he is the key. You got to get him the ball a lot more, especially with that investment, $12 million at a gold tier level. That guy should be Gronk for you. That guy should be leading you in receptions. And I think it's one of the reasons why, and I know we haven't talked about Tallahassee yet, and we will, they have invested in a gold tight end again because they have experienced what a gold tight end can be. And that guy was pretty good. So Tiberius Bovine, got to get him involved. And the last thing I'll say is I'm glad I keep all my past playbooks because all I got to do is Xerox mine from the last time we played because it's the exact same team.
Well, I almost forgot about Tallahassee after I had mentioned them previously, so I'm glad you brought it up. Corky in the chat said, "Don't make Mike mad. That's our first game of the season." So would anyone else like to piss off my father just to make it hell for Greg in week 1?
Hey, I lost to your father in week 1 last season, so no, I don't want to.
All right, I'll take that as a no across the board. Let's go to Tallahassee before we jump into Mexico City and wrap up our show. Dylan Rowland. This is the highest paid linebacker in the league. The max $15 million contract. You don't see max contracts thrown around willy-nilly. This is a calculated move by Tallahassee. It's going to be really fascinating. J. Calvin Kim pictured to the left. Also, a big money deal, $12 million. E.T. King isn't there anymore. Christian Christensen, $6 million rookie at a gold quarterback slot. This team is very interesting. 2 silver safeties along with 2 silver wide receivers, including Kenny G's return to the field as Ken Gossett. At the bronze level, 2 outside linebackers, 2 defensive ends. It's just a very unique and compelling build. Thomas Paternity is not involved as a coach in Tallahassee this year. It is Frank Gooden, and Frank Gooden's philosophies are back. So, Steven, what do you think of the Pride? What do you think of this $15 million investment into this linebacker?
Yeah, I think he wanted more out of his inside linebacker, and if you look at the numbers, there's not a lot of difference between a silver and a bronze there. I honestly thought that Bones Malone was their best linebacker last season. So I think this is Tallahassee just investing, going all in, trying to get that inside linebacker to perform at the level that they want. We've got let me look here. Okay, the running back. He's investing. He's going from silver to gold. Tells you a lot about what they want to do there. This is just not going to be the same team that we saw last season, but they're trying to duplicate that success. So it's going to be interesting. On the defensive side of the ball, Frank knows what he's doing. Is he going to be able to replicate what they did offensively so well without that quarterback and without that offensive coordinator?
Yeah, E.T. King and A.J. Barnes, big losses. Those are tough shoes to fill. Tom Menander's also not back. This team really had to reinvent itself, and they started with Dylan Rowland. They must really believe in that kid. Colin, Tallahassee is a team that, besides that 1 year, that sort of Baltimore anomaly year where they just could not score points, Tallahassee is a staple in the postseason. How is this team going to be different from maybe some other teams that we've seen in the past out of the Pride?
It's going to be different because they really put emphasis into their 2 gold players, Rowland and Kim. I think Kim will honestly have a bigger impact than most people realize being gold, because I was around a kid when I had my cup of coffee in Santa Fe, and even in the pass happy system of Ramos, you could see flashes of the Kim being really effective as a bronze. So I think it's a boon for Mr. Kim to be paid that money, especially considering you got a rookie quarterback, and the guy's so nice to name in place Christian.
Christian, yeah.
And defensively, yeah, the Dylan Rowland money that they're committing jumps out at you. I think Pete Secord is probably under the most pressure given how much of an impact A.J. Barnes had at that strong safety position. I think they'll really miss Barnes's contributions to the return game. We've seen him be a game breaker in that area for them before. I'll just be really interested.
The Brewski, the old Brewski jokes, old man Brewski jokes are the funniest thing the SFL is going. I also agree that Shan wins. The Slack comment was I had to really keep quiet to not laugh out loud on the air and ruin all the commentary. I think Colin brought up a great point about J. Calvin Kim. This guy is a bronze in Santa Fe, was electric. He was so good last year for Tallahassee. I mean, won some games for this team and has never really been on an offense that was not centered around the pass. What can he do in an offense that may be a little bit more balanced and be a little bit more centered around him? That's pretty compelling, Andy.
Yeah, you're taking the words right out of my mouth. I mean, the balance on this team is a lot more steady than we saw last year. I think Christensen will have a decent year at quarterback at gold. The two wide receivers intrigue me at the silver level. Gossett will have a year. I like where the safeties are positioned. And Cam, you schedule for the teams in your conference. You got Chicago, you got Carolina, you got teams like that are bringing those gold running backs who are going to be bruisers. So what do? You go out, you payroll in the big money right in the middle to stop what's coming. Then what do? You supplement the outsides with Madison and Malone. You give them max bronze contracts, and they're big guys, Cam. 6'6" for Malone, 6'3" for Nadinson. These guys are going to stop some run games. And then you got Barry and Moffitt on the front lines on the defensive side to kind of disrupt the passing game. And then you got Gordon and Secord on the deep backs to try and make the plays on the ball. No cornerbacks on this roster. That intrigues me a little bit. That would be the one thing that I would circle. Other than that, this is a very solid roster, Cam. I'm interested to see what Wesley Weeks does at tight end as well.
Yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill, rookie at $2 million on the bronze level. Last but not least, Mexico City, led by K.L. Barrett, who got a pay raise in the offseason. He is the new gold receiver at $9 million. Ray Bentley also gets bumped. He's now at a $12 million contract. Devin Cabrera, free safety rookie, $9 million. That's a big position for Mexico City. Their safety play is always excellent, including Pablo Zamora, who was, I think, easily the best rookie in the secondary in the SFL last season. Absolutely tremendous. Richard Montague at silver wide receiver. Tight end Ryan Moxon is a rookie at $8 million, and Chase Story at outside linebackers there as well. Matt Wilson from the bronze bomber to the silver slinger to the gold gunner, back to the bronze bomber, where he arguably had his best season, honestly. $2.5 million max contract. He's got a new weapon, Dijon Swan. Love the name. $2.5 million rookie deal there. King Wallace, Joey Lynn, Cole Varner are rounding out that bronze level. 7 players on offense for Mexico City, one of the few teams in the SFL this season that have more players on offense than defense. And you take us home with Mexico City.
Well, first of all, don't let Matt Wilson into an airport with all the types of weapons you just handed him in his name. They're going to put him on every list you just mentioned. No, I like the build. I think it's intriguing. The two receivers up top gives Matt Wilson a little bit of the help there in terms of, who he's throwing the ball to. Swain at bronze receiver also is in the mix. I'm interested to see what they do with Ryan Moxon. I think he could complement Bentley well in terms of the running game, as well as, help those receivers that we're talking about for Wilson. So I think Wilson has the weapons. The question will be, how does he capitalize on it? And then in terms of your defense, you have a very strong secondary, very strong. Lynn, Wallace, I think they'll have some solid years, as well as Zamora and Cabrera are just going to tear this thing up at free and strong safety. And those are some big guys, 6'3", 218 for Pablo Zamora. I'm interested by this team, and I can't wait to take them on week 1.
Yeah, those safeties are no joke. Colin, where do you see the strength out of this squad in the moves that they've made this offseason?
I really see the strength out of this squad on the offensive side of the ball. You mentioned it, 7 offensive players plus 5 defensive players. I think Matt Wilson, he can throw the ball just about anywhere, and these guys can catch it. I mean, you got the Mox in the tight end who's 6'6". You got Barrett who's 6'5", and you got Montag who's 6'3". Just big targets for Wilson to play catch with. And I think it's going to be really difficult, speaking as a guy who's a defensive back, to cover some of these guys, in particular Swan at 6'6", 223. It's going to be splitting headaches for most defensive coordinators.
It's interesting that Mexico City continues to invest in a kicker. Some teams, a couple of teams, doubled down on a kicker or started to invest in a kicker, but most teams continue to not give the kicker the money, even though we've seen kickers just screw up everybody's day before. Steven, on that note, Mexico City invests in the kicker, but I tell you what, this team is scary. They were scary last season late when they finally figured it out and sort of cut bait with some coaches that were not working out. This team could be a contender easily.
Yeah, the last time they had the Bronze Bomber there, they were 10-2. So they, 3,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 22 interceptions. So 68% completion rate from a bronze quarterback. Just an amazing output, and I'm sure they're looking to replicate that. Obviously, giving him a lot of weapons in order to do so. My biggest question would be the running back, the gold commitment to a running back. How is that balance going to work? Can they foster a good running game and a great passing game together? And they sacrificed a bit of their defense to do that. So, for me, the bronze corners, that might be a weak spot for them, although we have teams out there without any star corners. So, this team's it's just a headache, man. They've always been a headache. They're always going to give you a headache. I don't see that changing anytime soon.
So, upcoming events on the SFL calendar in 2 days. Curtis makes his play-by-play debut on the SFL network. He will have the second training camp battle for you Saturday night, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, Houston and St. Louis right here on the SFL network. Next week, training camp battle number 3 with Tallahassee in Alaska. Eric Vincent will have that game, and Eric Vincent will have that call for you. You've heard it here first. Once I can find what it is. Thursday, June 22nd, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. A few days later, on Sunday the 25th, that will start our 9 nights in a row of SFL action here on the SFL network, where we will be re-showing the top 9 games in SFL history, including some classics that most of you have probably never seen before, and you're going to want to tune in for each night of that countdown. On the 5th night of that countdown, an hour before kickoff, I, Director of Player Personnel Andrew Rastelli, and Liam Crowder will be on the air to introduce to you the SFL's new partner that promises to transform sim football forever. I'm telling you, it is the biggest sponsor we've had since DAC Stats came on board. You are not going to want to miss it. That's Thursday, July 29th. And before you know it, the season will be here. Steven Mullenax, owner of the Dallas Roughnecks, your final thoughts from this evening as the schedule or the season is now just a few weeks away.
Just the amount of investment in the running backs across the league is astounding. We all saw what the Bose kid did last season, and a lot of people are jumping on board there. The more unusual builds, the going with two teams going with no cornerbacks at all. St. Louis going with no star wide. I should say not going with no cornerbacks, but non-stars, and St. Louis going with non-star wide receivers, and a couple of the new teams, Vancouver and San Antonio, going with the bronze quarterback. So interesting once again, and we play the games to find out what works and what doesn't, and those influence what happens from season to season. That's what makes this such a great league. And finally, I just want to say, be sure to check out Pete Ruschke's MySpace page.
With the zing at the end of the show, Colin Northrup, co-owner of the St. Louis Gladiators, your final thoughts for the evening.
Well, my thoughts are, this league, it is copycat to a degree, but you see a lot of unique builds. You see teams investing in different positions in the front seven. We've seen one team get a max kicker. We saw a couple of teams, including a couple of teams, invest in a fullback. So it's going to be really interesting. I think, other than Chicago, I think Vancouver might have a possibility of sneaking into the playoffs.
All right, there we go. Another bold statement from Colin. Andy Hamilton, owner of the Vancouver Legion. Take us home. Your final thoughts from the season.
Yeah, I like that call, Colin. I think I would agree with you on that one. Just something about it intrigues me. No, I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of good teams this year. A lot of teams brought it. A lot of teams are trying new things, which I like. It'll be intriguing to see what works, what doesn't. A lot of question marks for teams. The one team I'm looking out for is St. Louis. What does that defensive front do? And how does their run game affect it? And there's a lot of fullbacks in the league that I'm going to keep an eye on. But it's a good league year. It'll be interesting, and I sure can't wait to get it started. And if you're looking for Pete Ruschke, you can catch him down at the Lodge watching all the new episodes of MASH.
Oh, man, they just never get old. All right, well, thanks to my panel tonight for all their hard work. And from all of us at the Simulation Football League, this has been a presentation of the SFL Network live here on YouTube. Good night, everybody. The season is right around the corner.